LVPO, or low variable power optic, is a style of scope that usually has two magnifications that can be adjusted to either or, and Tarkov has plenty of these choices on offer. The Burris 14x, the Razor 16x, Voodoo 16x, and Schmittenbender 18x. These scopes are highly sought after and can be extremely powerful in the right hands on the right weapon. But that begs the question, are these kinds of scopes too powerful in the game? Because let's be real for a moment. You see one of these on a gun or in the world, where is that optic going? In your butt. You're taking out your CMS kit or your splinted ammo to put that sucker in there, because not only are they powerful optics, but because they're so popular, they sell for ludicrous amounts in the flea market. Everybody wants an LVPO on their gun. But why? What makes them so powerful and versatile that people are willing to shell out $250,000 rubles to have access to it? Let's go over what makes them so strong, whether or not their presence in the game should be reduced, and if so, how. LVPOs aren't as old as some other optics and attachments present in the game. Most are more modern additions with their ability to have two magnifications swappable at any time. That level of flexibility is very potent. There are other optics in the game that have two toggleable zoom levels, but most of them don't have a base level starting at 1 times. For example, the Senholt, an optic I thoroughly enjoy using, has its magnification set at a 4 to 16 zoom level. Not ideal what you'd want to be sweeping across certain locations, but can still very much get the job done on maps with longer than average sightlines. I've also learned to enjoy the other optics Tarkov has to offer, whether they're hybrid scopes or optics with larger zoom levels, because the scopes we all enjoy, the LVPOs, have become too expensive to run. And that reason is simple: versatility. Having a 1 to 6x or a 1 to 8x allows you to cover pretty much all your distances with relative ease. I've always been fascinated by how people are so effective with that 1x on an LVPO. I find myself struggling to land shots for some reason. Maybe because I don't use them as often as others, but either way, to have a long-range scope with the ability to also tackle others as if you have a traditional red dot is very powerful indeed. And everyone seems to be in agreement that these are strong because everybody wants to get their hands on them. I know in reality, not everybody is running around with one of these things strapped to their gun because of the rarity and hefty price, but it's that same price tag that sometimes makes it feel like everybody has one. It's some ass-backwards mentality gymnastics, I know, just hear me out. But for the sake of posterity, if we wanted to reduce how often we see LVPOs in Tarkov, there are a couple of ways of tackling it. The first and most obvious is to just simply remove them from the flea, but it quickly becomes a rabbit hole if we go down this method. This way you either find them in raid or barter for the ones available. Again, this is to just play devil's advocate for the sake of conversation. To give a little back with how much we're taking by locking them off the flea, it would make sense to add barters for most of these popular optics. But then all that does is make those barter items the new hot ticket ones to buy. And with how BSG handles the vendors, those scopes would instantly sell out every trader reset. So unless you were camping the vendors, you'd most likely never be able to just open the game randomly and make a barter transaction. So while yes, we kind of solved the problem, we also just created new ones that honestly might be worse than just leaving the scopes on the flea. Another alternative would be to limit what kinds of weapons can fit LVPOs. But honestly, I'm trying to play devil's advocate here, and even I hate that idea. It goes against the spirit of Tarkov, which is that weapons can be built almost however you like. There are some restrictions, of course, but limiting optics to something like DMRs or bolt actions exclusively just feels wrong. So that idea can just go in the trash. Perhaps a happy medium would be that you can't put scopes in your secure container. That way, when you find one, if you really want it, you need to leave the raid with it. Plus, this way you can't spoof your own scopes whenever you're in a situation where you know that you're gonna die. It's kind of a win-win happy medium, but I digress. Another more, let's say, divisive adjustment to LVPOs would be to add an animation of your PMC adjusting the scope's magnification. It would be just a generic hand movement on a part of the scope, and while asking BSG for more of their time to be put into animations, for the minute is rather selfish at least. This way, there is a mandatory delay between swapping from one zoom level to another. It would be quick, maybe less than a second, and you could even still be zoomed in while you do it, but this way you can't spam between the zoom levels with zero recourse for it. It would also make that click and sway whenever you do swap zoom levels make a little bit more sense when it happens. I know it's to simulate the scope being changed, but at that point, just add your hand doing the motion. Kind of like how we have helmet flashlights now. That animation is simple, very generic, but it's fast. This way you feel like you're doing it instead of the game assisting on that front. I know I'm not the only one who suggested this idea, and that it's been said by many members of the community for years now. This just might be the first time you've heard of this getting brought up. It doesn't solve every problem, but bringing in an optic like this without any backup red dot or anything to speed the process now comes with a risk. You need to be on the right zoom level all the time, and that extra half second to swap might be enough for the person you're looking at to spot you and take you out. To answer the question of are LVPOs healthy for Tarkov, the answer is yeah, technically they are. Ultimately, people are always just going to gravitate towards what's the best, the most damage, the fastest, etc. It doesn't matter what safeguards are put in place. So whether it's LVPOs or if those got removed and everyone ran elk cans, bravos, and hammer scopes, it doesn't really matter. People are using the best come hell or high water. Could there be some adjustments made to how they behave so that maybe they're a little bit more cumbersome to use? Of course, and I would be really interested to see what those kinds of changes would do to Tarkov, making them harder to acquire, unable to be saved with a secure container, or not as snappy to switch between zoom levels. Any of these by themselves would make a massive difference, but until we see those changes get added into the game, if you do get your hands on one, just know you're running around with a powerful piece of kit that would sell for 6 figures on the flea market, so, you know, no pressure. Thank you very much for taking the time out of your day to watch this video. Let me know in the comments your thoughts on LVPOs and optics in general, and be sure to subscribe for more videos talking about powerful pieces of kit, some deemed precious and necessary to their success in the game. I hope to see you in future ones.